Gina Will, and Rob Tribble, and we thank them very much for their time. I think this is an important forum because there are questions about this role. I think a lot of people don't even understand what an auditor-controller necessarily does. So we are hoping that this acts not only to introduce you to the candidates, but also to introduce you to what this office actually really is. I am going to make a big thank you because we would not really be here right now if it weren't for the help of Nevada County, and specifically, and again, this is a mouthful, we have funding from the Nevada County American Rescue Plan Act, allocation for community and economic resiliency, and I just really want to thank the county for that. That goes to several nonprofits in the county, and it allows us to rebound from the past couple of years. So really important work that all of the nonprofits are doing, and they're getting that boost from the county. So many thanks, and thanks also for letting us use the Rood Center. I want to thank our media partners tonight. We've got KNCO and Ubinet with us, and the union has submitted some questions also, although the representative is not here. I want to just let you know that we have an audience that is going to submit some questions, but we also received questions previous through our info@League of Women Voters address. We're probably not going to get to all of the questions tonight, but we do hope to cover all of the primary topics, and we think that everybody will go away with quite a bit of education. The League of Women Voters website has a lot of information for voters, voter tools, voter resources. Please visit it, www.lwvwnc.org. Right around election time, this is when we get a lot of traffic because you can go there for voter registration, how to meet the candidates, watch these forums, which will be posted, and so forth and so on. So please make sure you do that, and if you appreciate the work of the League of Women Voters in bringing these forums, please also consider being a member, and you can do that through the website or putting a donation in our donation jar outside. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our moderator for tonight, Jeff Pettit. Jeff is recently retired from the Nevada County Sheriff's Department, and I'm going to turn it over to him. Thank you.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Is this thing? Okay, good. I say, okay, good evening and welcome to the candidate forum for the Nevada County Auditor-Controller, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Western Nevada County. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization and doesn't support or oppose candidates. The League has two arms, issues advocacy and citizen education. These forums are part of this education arm and are provided to you, the voters, as a community service. Again, my name is Jeff Pettit, and I am moderating tonight's program. Thank you to League member Janice Bedane for taking the large lift in organizing these forums. It couldn't have been done without her. So I want to go over some ground rules for this forum tonight. So please remember that we maintain a neutral environment, meaning nothing candidate or issues related may be showing during the forum. Please refrain from any outbursts. In other words, please do not cheer, boo, hiss, stomp, or anything of the sort. Any demonstrations of support or opposition to the candidates or their positions will be considered out of order in this nonpartisan setting we've provided. Audience, we also ask that you hold your applause till the end of the forum to allow the candidates as much time as possible to express their views on the issues, which is why I trust we are all here tonight. If we could all just, again, take a moment, let's silence our cell phones, make sure that those aren't going off. We have had them go off in past forums. And then, as Jana's already said, audience questions will be written on cards and submitted that way. Will our card runners raise their hands? So, if you, these volunteers will be stationed around the room and throughout the forum, distributing and collecting question cards. Raise your hand when you'd like a card or when you're ready to submit your question. If you think you might like to ask another question, please get a card now, or if you think you already have a question, please get a card now if you don't already have one. Ask questions for all candidates to answer and refrain from asking personal questions. Any follow-up questions must be asked on additional card. Questions will be screened to remove or consolidate duplicates and to remove personal questions. And to help our screeners, please keep the questions brief and legible. So, this evening, we are presenting the candidates vying for the office of Nevada County Auditor-Controller. The Auditor-Controller administers the county's major financial, payroll, capital assets, and property tax apportionment systems. The office prescribes and exercises general supervision over the accounting forms and the method of keeping accounts of all offices and institutions under control of the Board of Supervisors, and for those entities who maintain their funds in the county treasury, including special districts and school districts. The office also performs periodic internal audits of the county departments and other entities. The Auditor-Controller's office term is 4 years, and there are 2 candidates currently running, Mr. Ron Tribble and Mrs. Gina Will. In addition to the audience written questions, we do have a media panel who will pose verbal questions as well. Our media panelists are from KNCO, Chris Gilbert, from UBNet, Pascal Fushaller. We also have some questions that were submitted by the union. However, they could not have one of their reporters here today, and I will ask those questions. So, candidates will have 2 minutes apiece for opening and closing statements, and 1 minute apiece to answer questions. If a candidate would like a rebuttal, they will raise their hand, and 1 additional minute will be allowed to both candidates. However, we do ask that we keep the rebuttals to a minimum so that we can get through as many audience and questions as possible. Courtesy is paramount for a smooth running event. Candidates will not interrupt each other, and the candidate will have the floor until their time is up. I will probably call for the last question around 5:35. So thank you for your attention and readiness to listen. Now, prior to beginning tonight, I'm sorry, let me go over our timers. Our timers tonight will have 2 time cards that they will be holding up, one at the 30-second mark, and if you could show that. And then, there you go. So when you have 30 seconds left, you'll see that. And when your time is up, the time fell off, the T, you will see that. So when you see the red card is held up, the candidate may finish their sentence. However, we ask for no run-on or compound sentences. Finish your thought, and then so we can get on to the next question. So with that said, now it's time to meet our candidates. Prior to this, we had flipped a coin to see who would go first for opening statements. And based on that coin toss, we will now go to Gina Will. Mrs. Will.
Make sure that, right. So good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for attending. My name is Gina Will, and I'm running for Nevada County Auditor-Controller. I was born an accountant, not a politician, so please bear with me if I stumble through this a bit. The Auditor-Controller serves as the Chief Accounting Officer of the county and provides independent reporting and auditing services to county departments, special districts, and schools, ensuring that financial transactions comply with government accounting standards and laws. The Auditor-Controller safeguards taxpayer assets and oversees 4 critical functions: accounts payable, general accounting, payroll, and property tax administration. Government code requires an Auditor-Controller to have served within the last 5 years in a senior fiscal management position with similar fiscal responsibilities for a continuous period of not less than 3 years. I have over 25 years of relevant senior fiscal management experience. I have served as Assistant Auditor-Controller since July 2020, assisting with the oversight of department responsibilities. I've helped the county recoup nearly $2 million in disaster response expenses from FEMA and Cal OES. I've also helped establish the accounting and reporting structure for the American Rescue Plan Act funding. I was the Finance Director Treasurer for the Town of Paradise from 2008 to 2020, overseeing all financial management functions. My greatest professional achievement was developing and implementing a financial recovery plan for the Camp Fire to maintain critical public services for community recovery. I was the CFO for School Services of California from 1995 to 2008. I directed all financial management functions, including strategizing with the CEO to achieve financial objectives and to best serve schools in California. I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. And next we'll hear opening statements from Mr. Rob Tribble, sorry.
Is that working? All right, it's Rob Tribble, by the way.
you.
Ron's my brother. I'm Rob Tribble. I'm running for the position of Auditor-Controller here in Nevada County. And I think Gina's done a perfect description of what the job is. It's pretty much exactly what it is. She's done fine. Now, my qualifications for this job really got started a long time ago. I got a BA in economics and astrogeophysics from University of Colorado. I graduated in less than 4 years, drove my wife nuts. At the time, I also went on to get an MBA in finance from University of Chicago in quantitative analysis and finance. 3 of my professors are Nobel Prize winners in economics. One of them was very famous, and you might know who he is, but I'm not going to go into that right now. My biggest claim, I think, or the thing that exposed me most to being interested in taking this job, is I was on the grand jury last year. And I can't talk about what we did on the grand jury, but I can tell you that it certainly is an extension of being an auditor. And it's very precise, and it has to get done. And there's a very specific way you do those things. In addition to that, I've had representations I've given to the White House, I've done Congress, I've done the British Parliament, and I've done the Swedish Parliament in some of my activities in past. Probably the biggest thing and most crucial thing is early on in my career, the city of New York went bankrupt. If you can imagine 500,000 people with a payroll check that was supposed to be cashed tomorrow, and they did not have the money. I was part of that solution. And so I know public finance. It's very difficult. It's sort of like a lot of accounting, except it's on steroids. It's really tough. So she's done a great job. Marcia, you've done a great job. It's been a real accolade to get the awards that you've gotten. I'm done.
Thank you. And now we will move to our question portion of the forum. Our first question is going to be a media question, and that is from Ubinet Pascal Fusaler.
Pascal's just fine. Good evening, candidates. Thank you for being here. And so my question is, one of the duties, if I understand it correctly, because in over 20 years, I still don't know what Marcia does, so I'll freely admit it. So enlighten all of us. One of the jobs you have is to apportion the property tax that goes to the various special districts and cities, etc. A lot of them take drawdowns before all the money comes in, and some. So explain to us, what is the fiscal responsibility that you have as Auditor-Controller to make sure that a special district or an agency just doesn't ask you for, say, too much money before there's revenues or we have a big recession, etc. How does that work?
And Mrs. Will, you'll go first.
Thank you. So I think that the process that you're really describing is the teeter process, whereby the auditor-controller, the county, really buys the receivable from the special districts. So in very ordinary type collections that we do for property taxes, we teeter those receivables in that we give a percentage in December, a percentage in April, and then a final percentage in June. That's based on the actual tax levied. Then it's up to the county to actually collect any monies that might be delinquent, and by buying those receivables, we in turn receive the additional interest. So that's the short answer, I think, of what you're describing. And we obviously make sure that we don't apportion more than is required in that arrangement.
Thank you. And Mr. Tribble.
Well, I think that answer is absolutely correct. You know, there's some judgment that goes in exactly what some rules apply and which ones don't. What I think is more important in that particular area is making sure that they're not asking for more than they're supposed to get, and that there is in fact a budget and they've appropriated the amount of money for that particular expenditure, and that it's spent in a proper way. So I will gladly concede that her answer is perfectly correct.
Thank you. Next, we will move to an audience question. The first question is for Mr. Tribble. This is a submitted question. Mr. Tribble, many people don't understand what an auditor-controller does. Please explain to the voters what you believe are the primary responsibilities of auditor-controller.
Well, this is an interesting question. I've had a lot of people ask me this while I've been on this campaign trail. I like to use the analogy, if you will, that being an auditor-controller is sort of like being an umpire at a baseball game. And what I mean by that, there's a very specific set of rules how you play the game, and the General Accounting Standards Board enforces those rules and writes them up. But essentially, as an umpire, you have to call balls and strikes. You have to call the plays by the book. So what's really important is for the umpire to ignore the managers, the coaches, and the parents. So that's exactly what they're supposed to do.
Thank you. And Mrs. Will.
Thank you. So the auditor-controller is really charged with our 4 main service functions, which includes accounts payable, payroll, property tax, and general accounting, which is also related to the fair and accurate reporting of the financial transactions of the county. And obviously, as part of that, there is a number of government accounting standards that have to be followed and rules that have to be followed to make sure that those transactions are recorded in accordance with those rules and that the financial position of the county is properly reported.
Thank you. Next, we will take a media question from KNCO Chris Gilbert. And this question will be for Mrs. Will.
Well, I was kind of curious from both of you. I just got to thinking, with this office, are you okay with it being an elected office or being an appointed office? Or any thoughts on that?
I think it's important to have it be an elected office from the standpoint of the independence that's really needed in this office. It's very important to remain independent, not only from management, but from the policymakers, so that as we complete audit and review financial transactions, that we have that independence to take necessary action if needed to remedy any issues. So yes, I believe that it is important for it to remain elected.
All right, well, this runs right up my category. This is exactly what we did in the city of New York. There was a comptroller, there was a mayor, they argued over everything. They did not even have the same chart of accounts. If you can imagine trying to run accounting across 96 separate agencies and not have a common chart of accounts. We established one central authority for all financial systems, and we actually sent out a letter to all the suppliers that you will not get paid unless it comes on this with this stamp. That's it. That was finally put into place, financial control inside the city of New York, and that was the right answer because everybody went willy-nilly spending money everywhere. Go ahead, I'm done.
Thank you. The next will be an audience question, and this will be for Mr. Tribble first. What skills, abilities, and values do you have that would enable you to be an effective auditor-controller?
Well, I'm not going to get into policy issues. We can talk about process issues. I very much believe in following the book, and that's something that I've done. Many of the organizations I've worked for in the past, that's exactly what I did. I had 1,100 employees at Rand Corporation. We ran, if you will, a very tight ship, and I believe in that. So that's the way I like to manage people. I like to be open about it, but I like to follow the rules.
Thank you. Same question, Mrs. Will.
So I will just say that my career and I would say that it's experience, integrity, and transparency. I mean, that's really my mantra and my response and goals for this position. I mean, I do have extensive fiscal management experience. I've been known throughout my career to have integrity, to follow the rules, to be respectful and handle situations respectfully and diplomatically, and then also just transparency. I've been known throughout my career to be able to properly report the financial positions of the agencies that I've served, and have done it in a way that the public can really relate to and understand.
Thank you. The next question we have has been submitted by the Union newspaper. And Mrs. Will, you will go first on this question. The Office of the Auditor-Controller doesn't make policy like someone serving on the Board of Supervisors. If policy isn't a consideration, what should voters use when making their decision about who to vote for other than knowledge and experience?
That is a tough one, because I do think knowledge and experience is really crucial to those considering who to elect in this position. So we do, I would say that while we are not obviously policymakers in the sense of how funds are spent or how the budget is actually developed, we do establish policies and procedures that protect the assets of the county and taxpayer assets. So from that perspective, we are charged with making sure that we establish policies and procedures that not only follow government accounting standards, but laws.
Thank you. And Mr. Tribble?
Well, I take a look at these things, and policies and procedures internal to the Auditor-Controller. It's very important that everybody understand that you're protecting the integrity of the office, and that, in fact, everything that you put out, reports, et cetera, that the quality is absolutely there. You don't have an issue of bias or some question about doing things wrong. At the same time, I think it's important for the Auditor-Controller to advise the Board of Supervisors at the impact, sometimes the unintended consequences, of some of the actions that they take. And I do believe that's a position that is more public-oriented, maybe, than it currently is.
Thank you. Next is an submitted audience question. This will be Mr. Tribble to answer first. As a citizen and voter, I need to know that candidates I vote for believe in our democratic system of government, and in particular, free and fair elections. So while this question is not specifically about the job of Auditor-Controller, do you believe there was a large-scale election fraud in the 2020 presidential election, and why?
I think that's a policy question. I'm going to step away from that.
Mrs. Will?
I would just say, obviously I don't have information of statewide of how the election was handled, but just in my experience with the county, from what I've seen, I have not detected any voter fraud.
Thank you. And we will go back to our media panel, and Pascal from UBNet.
So reading the qualifications for the job, you're obviously both good with numbers. How good are you with people? And how would you change, expand, reduce the size of the office or the people? And what can you bring to the team?
Who's first?
I'm sorry, that was from Mrs.
Okay,
Will.
Gina, you're first.
Thank you. So my leadership style is certainly one of collaboration and development of the team that I work with. We have a very young team, but tremendously talented and very capable of completing the work of the Auditor-Controller. So, I think that my goal would be just to continue to develop their skills and to fully facilitate them moving on with their careers and assisting the county, and just continue to strengthen that relationship.
Thank you. And Mr. Tribble.
Well, I agree with that in the sense that I would like to see every person on Marcia's staff step forward and take her career one step further, wherever it might be, through education or experience. I'll go back a little bit, though, and talk about my experience at RAND, where I had 1,100 people reporting to me. What was really interesting about that job, at my young age, I was the youngest vice president ever at RAND. I had all sorts of people with degrees and experience levels above me, but I got promoted to that job. Why? Because I was just damn good at managing people. One of the things I figured out a long time ago, everybody is not the same. One kid likes baseball, another kid likes an ice cream cone. Some people like experience in specific fields. Some people like more time off. Some people like more travel. That's your job as a manager to figure out how to motivate them. And that's really the secret. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, a question from the audience, and Mr. Tribble, you get to go first. The Nevada County Auditor-Controller job description references California Government Code 26945 and Business and Professional Code 5081.1, stating candidates must have a minimum of 3 years senior fiscal management experience within the last 5 years. Can the candidates please tell us about their senior fiscal management experience from 2017 to 2022?
Okay, well, I'll be glad to answer that question. It came up, and I think, in our last forum. It's really quite simple. In a larger part of my career, I was involved in working for large companies as a consultant, et cetera, et cetera. About 20 years ago, I figured out the real kick, if you will, was becoming an entrepreneur and an investor. And to that light, in the last 3 to 5 years, I've managed to do what we call a lot of black projects. People understand, what's a black project? Well, the people that invest in me and the people that move me and use me don't want to be in the public sector. I sign NDAs probably 2 or 3 a week at times. Why? I'm good at it. Now, a very typical example of something like that is happening as we sit here. Somebody's trying to buy Twitter. Now, that was not me, but that was what I do.
Thank you. Mrs. Wilt.
So I have very relevant, recent fiscal, senior level fiscal management experience. I've been the Assistant Auditor Controller since July 2020, and then 12 years prior to that, I was the Finance Director Treasurer for the Town of Paradise.
And thank you. Our next question is going to be a media question. It's going to be from KNCO, Chris Gilbert. And the first question will go to you, Mrs. Will.
All right. How would you gauge the county's fiscal health and/or outlook?
Currently, we have a very strong fiscal outlook due largely to the policies set by the Board of Supervisors to maintain, conservative fiscal practices and manage finances appropriately. The Auditor Controller's done a wonderful job of obviously doing accurate reporting in order that the Board of Supervisors can make good financial decisions that affect policy. So I view currently that the county is in good financial shape.
Thank you. And Mr. Tribble?
I agree with that assessment. I was working with one of the counties here in California back 15 years ago when almost everybody had to cut their budgets. I think Nevada City and Nevada County did an excellent job of predicting where to go, not just reacting where to go, which a lot of counties did not do. And they found themselves in situations where they couldn't afford to do the things that they promised to do. Now, what was really interesting about that one meeting that I had is I informed people that typically in a private organization, 60 to 70% of your expenses are a direct function of headcount. You can only get rid of so many pencils and telephones and travel and lunches. And what's important to remember is for people to do the job, they have to have all those other things. And yes, you're going to have to let people go. And that's exactly what Nevada County did.
Thank you. Next question will be for Mrs. Will to start another audience question. Would you support the creation and use of a Nevada County public bank that would hold county funds and invest available funds within the county?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, it is.
Not one that I have considered, honestly. I don't know. Honestly, I would need to do further research to really understand what that would look like and what the impacts would be to the county to fairly answer that question.
Thank you. And Mr.
I would think that would be more in the treasurer's department. Typically, I don't see counties as being really good bankers, if that's the issue. They would probably contract out to have somebody do that function. Personally, I don't think it's a good idea.
Thank you. The next question is another submitted question by the Union newspaper. And Mr. or Mrs. Willie, yeah, Mrs. Will, you get to go first. What is the current auditor-controller doing well, and what needs to change in the office?
I think we're doing a number of things very well. We have a very solid staff who provides services that are required by the office. For the last 14 years, we've received awards for excellence in government reporting. I think some of our challenges are just the ongoing Government Accounting Standards Board's pronouncements that we can continually have to implement. They're time-consuming. So that's certainly one of the challenges. We do have a fairly new staff, but very capable and willing and ready to learn new requirements. So it's just bringing them up to speed and having them be completely comfortable with those responsibilities. But again, I think just thank you.
All right. I guess it's my turn.
It is your turn.
I see things a little bit different. I was on the grand jury last year, and part of my motivation for being here is being on the grand jury. Although I cannot specifically speak to any particular thing on the grand jury, I can say that the auditor has a very similar position to the grand jury. The difference being is the grand jury has subpoena power, and actually people can be prosecuted for not answering the questions, or, if you will, lying to the FBI. I think inside the audit department, they could do more of that. They don't necessarily have the subpoena power, but they can turn information over to the district attorney.
Thank you. And Mrs. Will. Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. So the next question is a submitted question by the audience, and that question is for Mrs. Will. Do you support the work of the Nevada County Equity and Inclusion Leadership Alliance? And if elected, how will you ensure inclusion and equity in hiring in the Auditor-Controller's office?
Absolutely. I think the more diversity and varied experience that we can bring into the office is only valuable. We're only as strong as the team that we have, and diversity and inclusion will only make the team that much stronger. So yes, I have been in my, since I've served as the Assistant Auditor Controller, I've been part of recruitments. We are always looking for the most qualified and the most diverse experience that we can find to bring into the office.
Thank you. Mr. Tribble?
Absolutely, we'll follow the law, and however it goes. In general, especially, in my past experience, it's very important to understand that diversity and inclusion are important, but at the same time, the quality of your work product has to be excellent.
And thank you. And it looks like we're going to have time for one more question, and that question is going to come from our media panel, and that is Pascal from UBNet. And Mr. Tribble, you get the first shot at this question.
What am I supposed, I'm sorry.
You got the first answer to this question. You get to answer first the question.
Oh, okay. What's the question?
May I?
You may.
Thank you. So we've heard a little bit about your qualifications, and it's nice to be able to go back to the 70s.
Yeah, that's for sure.
That's nice. It's also coming from a smaller from municipality would certainly experience challenges. So Nevada County is finally over the 100,000 residents, so it is still small. And the tools that are used, both of you talked about Gatsby, etc. How confident are you that you can use and understand the best available technology that we have right now that is available? And do you think that is technology going to make your job easier, or is it going to put some roadblocks as far as your job goes?
Are you or me?
I think you.
Me? Oh, okay.
Yes.
It's easy to say that a large part of my career was working for companies that weren't technology companies. In fact, that was exactly what our product was helping companies do a better job of managing their accounting, their money, their cash flow, their everything, essentially. Rand Corporation was really quite interesting in the sense that our customers were the Fortune 50 of the world, and they were large. But you know, the standards don't change just because of the volume. General accounting standards are the general accounting standards. They work for 2 transactions as well as 2 million transactions. So I don't know that there's any difference in, per se, how you do things, just the level of effort.
Thank you, Mrs. Will.
I would say that the Auditor-Controller's office currently is in a really unique position. We're in the process of actually starting to look at a replacement for our current financial management system. Our system has served us well for many years, but we have the opportunity to see what resources are out there, what additional technology could assist us with improving efficiencies in our processes and in reporting. So we're very much looking forward to beginning that process, starting by doing a needs assessment of the requirements for that position, and really look forward to moving that project forward for the county.
Thank you. And now we will move to the closing statements portion of the forum. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to give their closing statement, and we will be starting with Mrs. Will first.
Thank you. I am well prepared to serve in the highly technical role of Nevada County Auditor-Controller. This position maintains independence from county management and policymakers, which allows the office to accurately report and audit the financial transactions of the county. Experience matters in this specialized office, which is charged with millions in reporting and accounting. I have experience with private sector and government accounting and reporting. I know the ABCs of the auditor's office, including ACFR, GAAP, GASB, AB8, SCO, etc. I could go on and on. I also have extensive experience with the 4 core office services. Transparency and accuracy matters to me and to Nevada County residents. The Auditor-Controller is responsible for the preparation and completion of the annual comprehensive financial reports, which provide detailed financial information and complies with reporting requirements for local governments. For 14 consecutive years, Nevada County's ACFR has received the Government Finance Officers Association Award for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Accurate financial reporting maintains the county's eligibility for state and federal funding. I can personally show you how every dollar of coronavirus relief funds have been properly accounted for and reported. There is dedicated space on the county website which provides detailed reporting for both the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan Act funding. I'm always available for questions, and our office has been open throughout the pandemic. I'm honored to have been mentored by long-serving Nevada County Auditor-Controller Marcia Salter and to have earned her endorsement. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting this event, and thank you, neighbors, for attending. I'm Gina Will. I'd be honored to earn your vote for Nevada County Auditor-Controller.
Thank you. And Mr. Tribble.
My turn, huh? Okay, I'm going to back up a little bit. A large part of those jobs that I used to do in the technology field was essentially selling, marketing, designing, implementing new software. But what's interesting about it, it's not only the software. It's the training that goes with the software, and it's the support that goes with the software. So I'm very, very familiar with that. Now I'm going to flip a little bit, and I'm going to go off record, if you will. One of the interesting things about when I started this campaign, I talked to both of these ladies and introduced myself, and they both asked me the same question: are you ready to do the work? And what's interesting about that, I agree, this campaign can be quite intense. I told my wife the other day that I don't know 50% of what I'm going to do 2 days from now. It's really quite interesting. In a meeting a little while ago with a group of people, I sort of went off script completely, and I said, I'm sort of old-fashioned. I took my hat off, and I passed it around the room. Hopefully people were going to put some money in it and help me out. It went around the room. I had my conversation. It came back to me, and it had no money in it. My wife took the money out of it. She had it right here, which was really hilarious. But what happened next was I had a young man, 8, 9, 10 years old, come up, and he said, I want to donate $1 to your campaign. I was just taken by that. I really was. I took it home, I framed it, I put it above my father's Distinguished Service Cross. Any of you that have been in the military know that's not a participation medal, and put it on my wall. Now, at the end of this whole campaign, no matter who wins this campaign, I got that $1 on my wall, and that, for me, paid everything. So thank you.
All right, and that concludes our forum for tonight. Thank you to the candidates.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who came in tonight. We do have more forums to educate the communities, our community voters, in preparation for the upcoming elections, including the candidate forum for Nevada City Council, starting in just a few minutes. Thank you.
Well, nice, Gina.